Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another show. I seem to have done rather a lot of live stream shows just in the last few days, in the last sort of week, because I sat in for Jonny for Songwriting Simplified, which I did on my own on Wednesday. So I've done a Sunday show, done a Wednesday show, and all of a sudden we're back around to Sunday again. It's crazy how fast the week has gone. So there has been a lot of attention being drawn in the chat to the fact that I have the thumbnail for the video wrong, and for some reason it came up with a start time of in 6 hours time rather than midnight when it's supposed to. It wasn't even supposed to schedule it. I don't know why it did, but it did. And so I don't even know how I'm going to be able to post this once it's done, because all the setup is totally wrong. So I'm going to have to try and find it and fix that once the show is done. So there may be a little bit delay if you're wanting to catch the replay of this show because you're not able to be here live. There might be a small delay whilst I try and fix it all and make it all right. So there you go. Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong thing. Is what I did, and Mike is telling me that I need to get an assistant, and he's right, I do. I definitely do need to get an assistant. So, but lots of you guys have been chatting away since we started. So we have Mike. Mike was the first one in the door, which is pretty amazing. Then Ken says, is the start time wrong? Mine says it begins at 1 a.m. in 6 hours. Yeah, that was, yeah, and it's not Songwriting Simplified either. Yep. Mike says, you need a manager to take care of the little stuff so you can worry about big stuff. Yep. You're absolutely right. I do need an assistant. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, particularly with kind of like all of the new changes that are coming to my business, some of which I've already talked about. But I think I'm probably definitely going to need an assistant going forward. So James Geo is here, Ken Moss and Kyle, and John Lake is here. And who else do we have? Ken Moss is here. Bobby Booth is here. Ray Thomas is here, which is awesome. And who else do we have? Second Tony is here. And Mike says, I was pretty impressed by my arrival. Yes, I am pretty impressed as well. Kyle says, welcome to this edition of the Mutual Admiration Society. Let's pat each other on the back now. That's hilarious. Rainer, my good friend over in Germany, is here. He says good morning, because for him it will be extremely morning. It'll be 1 a.m. for him. So thank you for waiting up. I appreciate it, Rainer, very much. And anyone else that is out there in Western and Central Europe, thank you very much for staying up and being here, because I know it is very late into the wee hours for you guys. So it's late enough for me in that it's midnight here. And for you guys in the States, you're just kind of either sitting down to Sunday dinner, or you are going to be very soon sitting down for Sunday dinner. But for us on this part of the world, it's late into the night and into tomorrow morning. So there you go. Let's see. Jonny Guy is in the room. He says, howdy, folks. Good to see you, Jonny. And Budbox Guitars is here too. So we have a pretty good full house tonight. So I am very, very impressed. Today has been a bit of a crazy day. I was out the other side of town with my kids today, and we had the I guess you could say the back end of, or the weakening version of a hurricane that you guys have had over in the States. It kind of crossed the Atlantic and came over here. It hit Ireland first, and we just kind of got the outside edge of it because it started to move southeast of Scotland, and so we only got the outside edge of it. So it's just been wet. We've had lots of rain today, and so parts of the city were flooded, which kind of meant that getting back across town took a very long time. It only took us 20 minutes to get into town, and then getting out and back to my side of town. We're on the southeast outskirts of the city of Edinburgh, and we had been in the north side of the city. And getting back home took us a couple of hours. In the afternoon, so yeah, it was not very entertaining. And then the weather has just been really bad. The rain has been really quite heavy and intense here. So, so parts of the city are a little bit flooded, and a few people's cars have been washed away. That kind of stuff, standard stuff for the back end of a hurricane. Except it's not been windy. But anyway, you guys are not here to hear about the wind and the rain. And Jonny Guy with the $25 donation. Jonny Guy, thank you very, very much. You don't have to do that, but I appreciate it nonetheless. But thank you so very much. That is extremely cool of you to do that. Thank you. So consequently, I have been running about 2 hours late for the whole rest of the day. We had dinner late and everything else, and Bobby Booth with $10 as well. Good grief. Bobby, thank you so very much. And I haven't even said anything sensible yet. I haven't even got on to talking about anything vaguely music production orientated yet. And already you guys are donating. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. But, you never know. You might want a refund at the end. So there we go. Jonny says, your share of last Wednesday's Songwriting Simplified. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was a very good show. The last one that you and I did together. So let's get into what we're going to talk about, because it is now 10 minutes into the show. I hope everyone can hear me okay, because I had a Windows update. That I needed to do before I could do anything else tonight, and it's not as bad as Windows 7 updates, are not as bad as Windows 10 for messing everything up normally, but this one did. This one really messed me up big time for audio. It made a right mess of everything. I had to it basically changed all my default settings. So my default setting is my second interface for this mic, so you guys can hear me and hear Studio One and everything as well. It changed all of that, and it changed all of the mic levels and everything. So I kind of quite hurriedly this evening kind of just threw everything together, try and get it working again. So when I'm speaking, you might hear quite a bit of hiss, and I'm sorry about that. I will fix that for next week, hopefully. Hopefully everything will be fine for next week. I'm not necessarily that impressed with this last. I think it's one of the final updates for Windows 7, and I'm not that impressed with what it's done. So anyway, I made a whole bunch of test recordings before we started, and there was quite a bit of static in the audio. So hopefully everything's okay. All right, so let's get into what we're going to talk about tonight. So I figured we would talk about something that is a little bit dear to my heart, and is an issue that should concern all of us. Now, Songwriting Simplified, I talked a little bit about writer's block and how to push through that. Well, what I'm going to talk about is dealing with hearing problems. I'm not just talking about hearing loss, I'm talking about other auditory problems that folks can have, and what you can do to either work through them or try and work past them, or ways in which you can prevent them from happening to start with. So some of you will be familiar with this territory if you've been in the music business for any kind of length of time, either as an amateur or semi-professional or even professional. Some of these things you'll be aware of already, but some maybe you won't have thought about. So the reason why the subject of hearing issues is dear to my heart is because I suffer from a hearing condition. I have really quite bad tinnitus, which I've had since I was about 13, 14 years old. And I'm sure it is the fact that, when I was 13, 14 years old, I was already recording in studios as a session drummer, and was beginning to build my career and earn a living as a session musician, and playing gigs and things. So that's kind of what I was doing, and so my ears were exposed to a lot of loud noise, and a lot of you that have been to rock concerts and stuff, your ears will have been equally exposed to lots of loud noise and stuff. But I was in studios for a lot of my time when I wasn't at school. After school, I would be over at the studio where I was one of the house drummers that they had there. They had I think 4 or 5 of us that were house session musicians, and we played on whatever projects were in the studio at that time. So evenings, that's where I went. So anyway, so that's kind of hearing issue number 1, really, is tinnitus. Hearing issue number 2 for me is more of something that is possibly a genetic thing that we didn't really know about until recently, and that is I have slow but progressive hearing loss. So there will come a point in time when I will lose my hearing altogether. We don't know how long that's going to take. But it has accelerated a wee bit over the last 6 or 7 years. So I have to work around that as a professional mixing engineer. And it is a challenge because I need to make sure that I am keeping up with my other professional colleagues as well, so that the work that I do doesn't end up going off to them because they've got better ears than I have. So I have to find ways in which I work around and through those issues. The tinnitus, there is a way in which I have learned to work around it, and I have good days with it and bad days with it. On a good day, I can kind of just dial it down a little bit in my mind. I am so used to the frequency at which it lives that I can just dial it back in my mind and suppress it and just pretty much ignore it to the most part, and it's not really an issue. But then I have days where it is actually just really, really loud, and it's an offensive frequency, and it's annoying. So for me, when I'm mixing a song on a good day, it's not too bad. But on a day where the tinnitus is really, really loud, I know the frequency point where it lives. So I have to just be careful and make sure that I am not pulling out loads of top end particularly around about 13, about 12, 13K, because that's where my tinnitus lives. And so for me, for as much as we talk about our ears being more important than the gear, if you suffer from any kind of hearing condition or hearing impairment whatsoever, then you will find that actually the gear will become as valuable to you as your ears are, because they will provide you with information that your ears can no longer give you. So, for example, in my case, I'm starting to lose some of the upper mid-range, and I'm starting to lose some of the very, the kind of shimmer sparkly area. So, because I know that I'm starting to get a little dip in my personal kind of hearing EQ, in those areas, I need to watch that. So the way that I do that is by using, various forms of metering, so that I can see with my eyes what is going on, and I can see if I am naturally, because of my hearing, either boosting too much of that mid-range, and I just need to be aware that I need to just tame it back more than, I would. My ears are deceiving me. My ears are telling me there's not enough mid-range, so I start boosting to compensate for the fact that I'm losing my hearing in that area. So I automatically start boosting. And that's where metering helps me, because metering helps me make sure that it's balanced in that area. Even if I can't hear it, I need to trust that the metering is going to give me the correct information. And the other thing I do, and this is a little bit more, I think this is actually something that is good just for everybody, and that is to get your mixes to somebody else who has great ears, and somebody that you can trust. You can trust totally that they will give you a good opinion about your mix. So in my case, because I know I've got the tinnitus and I've got this, gradual hearing loss, I have people that I send my mixes to, and they can verify whether I'm pushing it in those areas or not. And they help me stay on track with that. So if you have any kind of hearing condition, those are a couple of ways in which you can deal with it. Making use of good metering on your master bus, your main output, and also send your mix to somebody else who doesn't have that particular hearing issue. They might have others. Everybody's ears are affected by their environment in different ways. So it may well be that somebody that you trust, they don't have a hearing loss or tinnitus or anything like that. So, you can run your mix past them and they can say, hey, yeah, you've kind of overcooked it a little bit in that area. I don't know, it's because of your hearing loss or whatever. So, so there you go. I hope that you found some of that advice useful and helpful, and hopefully provokes a discussion amongst you guys, which I'm going to go and check in just a second. But I just noticed that Ken Moss has a $10 donation. Thank you very much, buddy. And he says, for this month, until the VIP is launched, I'm sending from my phone, so no more of that $9.99 iPad crap. That's very cool. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the round number as well, because yes, that $9.99 thing, it's just like it's like an unresolved dissonance. Some classical musicians, if you were to play this and leave it hanging there, classical musicians start to get very, very, very irritated. I don't know if, you guys are sitting there beginning to get irritated as well. And somebody will then walk over to the piano and do this, because they have to resolve the 2-5-1. If I leave it like that, somebody will walk over and then go, because they need to resolve that. And And so, yeah, there you go. All right, let's go take a look at the chat here. Mike says, in all seriousness, the 4 times I saw Iron Maiden back in the 80s and 90s killed my hearing. Those concerts were freaking loud. Power Slave in 85 was just insane. Yeah, going to gigs will definitely smack your eardrums to Hades and back. For sure. Even jazz gigs do that nowadays. Mike says, I want to give, but I'm broke till Tuesday. Mike, it's cool, man. Seriously, it's absolutely cool, dude. You are generous to me in a whole bunch of other ways, so I appreciate that. Bobby says, I'm glad that at my age I have no hearing problems. Yes, you are one blessed dude. Kyle says, I haven't gone to any heavy metal concerts, but Cheap Trick was the loudest I've ever been exposed to. Okay. James R. is here. He says, I sympathize with you. My ears have had the ringing increased in the last couple of years. Played in bands since I was 15. Tinnitus is awful. It certainly is. I don't know if you're like me, James, where you have days where it's just in the background and you barely notice it. And then other days it's just loud and offensive and annoying. And, there's nothing that dials it back at all. Yes, very, very irritating. Let's see. Ken says, I've always said as a musician, if I ever had a choice between blindness or deafness, I would much rather be blind. Could not imagine not being able to listen to music. Yeah, I see your point, actually. However, I would go with the Beethoven argument at this point. Beethoven, kind of in the middle of his career as a professional musician, professional composer, he had a very serious hearing problem, which eventually led to him being completely and totally profoundly deaf. Right kind of in the middle of his period of his career. Just as he was beginning to peak. It kind of hit him just as he was beginning to peak in his career. Now, for some people, they might have just walked away and said, okay, I can't hear anymore. That's the end of my career as a musician. I may as well go and train to be a bricklayer or, an investment banker or something else other than music. That's not what Beethoven did. Beethoven sat and wrote possibly some of the most profoundly engaging and moving music he had ever written. And certainly some of the most challenging music that he had ever written. I think in his case, the deafness was a good thing because it released him from limitation. In his case, he kind of was limited by, the conventions of the time, the musical conventions of that kind of the latter part of the classical period, and the forms and structures that went with it, where everything was very kind of rigid and regimented in nice, neat little boxes. That's how music was shaped. If you look at any classical architecture from the same period, that kind of maybe 1720 through to about the beginning of the 1800s. A lot of that music is very regimented, and architecture is very the same. Kind of everything is simple, sleek, straightforward, logical. Nothing kind of wonky or weird around the edges, nothing frilly. And the same goes with the music. Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven himself. These were the great pioneers of that period. Now, when Beethoven lost his hearing entirely and went profoundly deaf, 2 things happened to his music. Number 1, he became a lot more harmonically adventurous. More harmonically adventurous than his old teacher, Mozart. Mozart had taught Beethoven a lot. and you know, he outstretched everything that Mozart had taught him. When he lost his hearing, he became harmonically more advanced. He started to play around with the forms and the structures as well. So he extended symphonic form out from its neat little boxes in which it resided. He would stretch the compositional form quite considerably and quite significantly. He also enlarged the orchestra and added extra instruments in that had never been in the orchestra before, including cannons, believe it or not. 1812 Overture. There are actually cannons written into the score of that work. So he wrote more challenging music, more pushing the boundaries. It was much more innovative music after he lost his hearing. So in Beethoven's case, hearing loss, good thing. It meant that he kind of pioneered the next period of musical development, which became known as the Romantic period. The Romantic period kind of, some of the forms and structures of music were stretched and some new forms were created. But certainly harmony stretched out beyond the octave. So, kind of instead of being limited to, seventh chords at the kind of the most discordant, Beethoven started adding notes above the octave. So, ninths and thirteenths started to appear in classical music. Thanks to Beethoven's harmonic developments. And he probably would never have arrived at those without being profoundly deaf. So, on balance, I think in his case, I think hearing loss was a good thing. It for some people that would be a limitation, but it wasn't for him. And I'm sure, that would be the case for maybe a whole bunch of other conditions that we might go, oh, well, that's the end of my career then. I can't do this anymore because of this new limitation I have. Beethoven didn't see it that way. He saw it as just something to be overcome. And so he did. All right. I kind of got a little ranty there. So, let's see. Mika Han is here, which is very cool. Where did I get to in the chat? John Lake says, very brave of you. We'll talk about this. Mike says, I can't hear over 13K in noisy rooms like restaurants. I can't hear shit. You know what? There you go. One for the swear jar. I think there's a lot of people that particularly in restaurants, struggle to even hear somebody that's sat directly opposite them because of the ambient noise. Because the brain starts to get confused about what's ambient and what isn't. So what the brain kind of like has a mixing console in your ear, so that you are able to differentiate what sound is coming from where in your entire 360 panorama. And also how far away it is. So, your brain and your ears are totally able to differentiate between what is close and what is further away, and which you need to give your attention to. For some people, if they experience some hearing loss in some frequencies, sometimes somebody standing right in front of them talking to them, they totally cannot hear it because all of the other ambient noise is masking it. Is masking that person's voice standing right in front of them. And it's nothing to do with how close they are. It's to do with all the competing frequencies start getting in. Now, in some restaurants, that's due to the fact that maybe there are lots of parallel surfaces in the restaurants, and nice smooth surfaces that are very reflective, and maybe some of those reflections are causing cone filtering, standing waves, all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of restaurants nowadays, they all acoustically treat their restaurants. I was in a restaurant maybe about 2 weeks ago with my mother. We went for lunch. My mother takes me out for lunch occasionally. She lives not that far away from me, so she's only about an hour and a quarter away from me. So we go and hang out for lunch. She's a singer and comedian, retired teacher, and so we meet up and we chat through all sorts of stuff. But anyway, in this particular restaurant, they had panels up on the walls. Now the panels had been covered in really nice material that had been screen printed with pictures. So they looked more like silk screen printed pictures rather than acoustic panels. So they were kind of nice and decorative, not kind of like the panels that you and I would have, or even what you can see that panel there. None of that stuff. I mean, these panels were probably about 4 to 6 inches thick, hanging on the walls, and they did a great job at just kind of like dampening down some of that ambient sound. So yeah, more restaurants need to do that. Mika says, have you identified the actual frequency of your tinnitus? Yes. Yeah, I reckon it's around about 12.5, 13K. Round about there for me, which is higher up than most people. Most people it's around about 8, 9. But yeah, mine's that little bit higher. Can I reproduce the frequency? Yes, I can. Is it possible to neutralize it by phase cancellation? I don't know. I don't know. Because it's not real. Is it? It's, tinnitus is not like you are hearing a real actual frequency within the room. There's nothing generating that frequency. It's just the brain has got a little bit confused about that frequency because the ear has got damaged, either through illness. In some people, they have it because of illness, or some people it's just been overexposure to loud volumes. So the auditory experience isn't real. But you definitely hear it. But it's not necessarily real. I mean, nobody else can hear my screaming 13K tinnitus. So I don't know whether phase cancellation would do anything for it. But maybe you're right. It might be worth experimenting with. Let's see. Bubbox Guitar said 75% of any movie is in its soundtrack. Yes, absolutely. Mike says, yes, that's because cannons are awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder if his original audience ended up after that premiere performance of the 1812 Overture. I do wonder whether his audience ended up as deaf as he was by the end of it. Ken says, think about the timing with cannons in live music in the 19th century. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that he would have had to have taken into account, was how long it takes to load one of those things up. I mean, obviously it's firing blanks, but how long it takes to load those things up, and then each they have a timer fuse. So you light the fuse, and then that creates the percussion strike that ignites the primer, which fires the round. There you go. Bet you didn't know I knew that much about cannons. Mike says, pieces written for just firework displays and so forth. Yes, Haydn's fireworks music. I've actually seen that performed by an orchestra with with the fireworks, and it was period instruments as well. So people were performing not just dressed in period dress, but playing actual period instruments. So timpani drums from that period, woodwind instruments from that period, and it sounded absolutely glorious. Yeah, that would have been 5, maybe 10 years ago that I went to see Haydn's fireworks music with actual fireworks. It was a great performance. Bubba says there was a UK artist got his song on the outro to a box office blockbuster and got paid a few mil. Never heard any music from them again. That's okay if that's where your heart is. Yeah, you're probably right. Mika said, often it's hit or miss. I got lucky. Miami Vice was an opportunity into the TV business for me. Yeah, often something like that would be. My only entry into the TV world has been as an extra. Some of you may or may not know, but I do a little bit of acting on the side. I enjoy my acting, and so I've appeared in a few TV shows here in the UK as an extra. Sometimes I've had a speaking role, sometimes I haven't. But it's a little bit of money on the side, a few £100, a few £100, just for turning up and walking through a scene. Or I think on one occasion I had to be behind a bar and serve one of the other main actors a pint of beer. I think I had to do that, and that was actually a little speaking role. I had a couple of lines of dialogue to, I had to interact with the actor a little bit before he went and then played his main scene, and then I was just in the background. I was still in shot, but I was just in the background after that. So yeah, that's my little entry into TV. I've not done any music for TV. I've done music for student films. We have one of the oldest universities in the world is Edinburgh University, and I've done some scores for media students for their film projects. And then I've done a couple of short films for some friends of mine. Couple of friends of mine are film directors, and they've made some films to try and get it into the film festivals, and I've done some scores for them. But yeah, and that's really, you're right. It can be hit or miss, and you never know. Something that does make it to a film festival that takes off and gets interest can end up at the Oscars and all of that. And you can end up ridiculously successful and famous without really putting in a whole lot of effort. Let's see. Ken says, never played a DX7, but I listened to so much Jerry Goldsmith. I feel like I have played one all my life. Jerry Goldsmith, one of the great film composers and TV theme composers. He also wrote a lot for big bands as well. I played a lot of his charts in various big bands over the years. James R. says, are you on any reflux reducing drugs? My tinnitus went through the roof when I started taking them. No, I am not. Michael Johnson is here, and they're talking about the Korg M1 as well. Yes, I had a Korg M1. The piano sound on that Korg M1 is awful. It's absolutely disgusting, and yet it is wildly recognizable. It's been on so many songs. So many dance records have that Korg M1 piano sound, and you instantly recognize it when you hear it. It's one of those sounds that just is completely iconic of that period of the 1990s. That keyboard was great, but I hated that piano sound. Let's see. Man, my nose is very itchy. I think I got down to the bottom of the chat. You guys are talking about synthesis and the DX7. Mike says that the DX7 is one of the original FM synths. Yes, I think you're right. Michael says, I noticed when it went into sustain, it pitched down slightly also. Okay, cool. Yes, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly my recollection of the Core Game 1 with the sustain pedal, is that it would detune the notes ever so slightly, maybe by 2 or 3 cents at the very most. It would make the whole thing 2 or 3 cents flat, which is, to some ears, nobody's going to hear that. To me, you're right, Michael, and obviously to you as well. Noticeably, it would go flat with sustain. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, we are at 1:45 the hour, and my nose is so itchy. It's most annoying. I'm really sorry I'm having to itch and scratch and wipe so much. Sorry about that. All right, anyone got any questions on music production, mixing, mastering, songwriting, arranging, all that fun stuff? And we can do that for a few minutes, or if you want me to play something on the piano, I can do that as well. Just don't ask me to play anything hard, like I don't know, Donald Fagen's Maxine, because I can't play that. Mike says sneeze already. It's not that I want to sneeze. It's just my nose is itching like flipping crazy. It's bizarre. It's very, very bizarre. So, whilst I'm waiting for you guys to stick some questions in there, I made mention on Jonny's show, I think last night or the night before, that I'm launching my VIP on November 10th. That's now the target date that we're aiming for to launch the VIP. But you see, we're not just launching the VIP. It's not just VIP and everything else. Everything else, my entire brand, so to speak, is getting a facelift. So new website, new graphics. All my videos are going to have new graphics. Sunday Night Live is going to get new graphics. Everything is getting new graphics and new sounds and stuff. So I'm working on those at the moment. It's going really, really well. I'm working on a couple of courses that are going to be in the VIP, which I can tell you about. And I will, as we go towards November 10th, I'll tell you a wee bit more about what's going to be available. So for those of you that have been waiting a long time for me to produce a beginner's music theory course, you're in luck because you're going to get one. It will be in the VIP members area. So, if that's something that really interests you, then when we launch, sign up. And it will be it's a monthly membership. It will be £12 per month, which I think is about $15-ish. Somebody can give me the right kind of exchange rate at the moment. RJ says, just tuned in. Johnny's going flipping crazy. Am I? Maybe. Yeah. £12 per month, or you can pay it annually if you want. If you'd rather pay just like once a year instead of paying it every month, we can absolutely set that up as well. So there is going to be a couple of courses to start with, and then I'm going to be building up the library going forward with a whole bunch more courses. And the great thing is that if you're a monthly member, or even if you're an annual member, if you're a member of the VIP, you get all of this, all of the courses that are going to be in there on the day of launch, and everything else that I add forever going into the future, anything else that I add will be added there at no extra cost. So it's always going to be £12 per month, whatever that is in dollars. And you get every new course. So that's going to be very, very cool. The more courses that are there, ultimately the price per unit goes down, doesn't it? So that's going to be extremely cool. But if you don't want to be a member, that's fine. But if you still want access to my courses, you don't have to be a member. I'd love it if you did, and it's probably going to be the most cost-effective way for you to get access to all of my stuff. But, if you don't want to be a member, that's okay. All of my courses will be available in my brand new store when that goes up as well, which is all going to happen at the same time on November 10th. And each one will have a separate price per unit. So you'll be able to purchase those instead of having the membership. But the membership gives you not only access to my courses, but it gives you access to the members forum. There'll be monthly challenges that we will do. And some of those will be a songwriting challenge. Some of those will be an arranging challenge. Some of those will be a mixing challenge. Some of those will be a remixing challenge. I might actually get you guys to remix one of my songs, or somebody can volunteer one of their songs for remix. One of the members could do that. Ultimately the challenges are going to be down to members. Members can decide. We'll have a vote. Once a month, everyone puts their suggestions in, and we all vote on them, and the one with the highest amount of votes will be the challenge that we all do. So, and I will be taking part in the challenges as well. Plus, we'll have a monthly coaching call, and you will also be able to get me on Skype as well. So if you want further, more specific individual training, you get that as part of the monthly membership as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be involved in that. So I will tell you more and show you more as we go forward, heading towards November 10th. So stay in touch with me for that. Sign up for my email. There's a link in the description below. You can sign up there. And if you sign up on that email list, don't worry, you will get moved over to the new platform when we start in November. So that is going to be very cool. Okay, you guys have been added some questions here. There we go, $14.80 right now. So around about $15, which is kind of what I thought it was. So I was only about 20 cents short. Let's see. Let's go take those questions. And Michael says, how about Bruce Hornsby the way it is? Yeah, I don't want to get struck for copyright. So when I say play something on the piano, I kind of mean if you want to suggest a particular style or a particular way I play the piano. Let's see. What am I working on right now musically? I'm working on some arrangements for Christmas carols. I'm doing a big band arrangement of In the Bleak Midwinter. So that's going to be very cool. I've got a band that are going to play that, but I'm probably not going to get to record it, I don't think. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. I may well record, at least put out the mock-ups for it. So using Presence XT and Notion and all of that. All of the mock-up work that I do for that arrangement, I may well actually put out there for general release. So I'm working on that. I'm working on a video for Christmas as well, which I do with my church every year. So we're going to be starting work on that soon. I'm working on a couple of records for clients as well at the moment. So plus all of this other stuff to do with the VIP. All of that is kind of ongoing at the moment. So my days at the moment are really, really busy. Let's see. See if I can find any more questions. Mika says, do you ever incorporate flat fives into your tonic scales? Yep. I use Lydian scales quite a lot, actually. Yeah, quite often the old sharp 11 gets into my major scales. One of my favorite scales, actually, is that Lydian major scale. Let's see. Face is here. He says, my favorite and main gigging keyboard to this day is the PVDM DPM4. Wow. Kind of a little ahead of its time. It's been fairly easy to tweak. And when it messes up, I can usually fix on the fly. There you go. Ken says, one of the members at Warren's PLAP Academy made banner pics for us members to put on our website showing that we are Academy members. If you and JG can design one for yours. Cool. Well, that's a good thought. Ken, we should hook up and talk about such things. Let's see. It'd be good advertising if we had that on our own personal pages. Yeah, that sounds like quite a good idea. Let's hook up and talk about that in a little bit more detail. Drop me an email, Ken. Let's see. Mika says, talking to Second Tony about save to new folder and all of that. Play some Boogie Woogie. I like Boogie Woogie, but it's a challenge to play it. Greg says James Taylor does a great version of In the Bleak Midwinter. Yes. Jacob Collier, the English musical genius, who is only about 23, 24, I think he is. Multi-instrumentalist, who is now under the management of Quincy Jones, one of my heroes, Quincy Jones. He's done a glorious, glorious version of In the Bleak Midwinter, including making use of negative harmony and microtonal modulation. If you don't know what that is, that's something else for another video, to be honest, or another show, microtonal modulation. Because it's very sneaky and it's very clever when it's done well. It's very sneaky and clever. Let's see. And Michael Johnson with the $5 donation. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Very kind. Very kind indeed. And I think we've reached the end of the questions. I think. John says, fanboy question, how tall are you? I am 6 foot and a quarter of an inch. There you go. 6 foot and quarter of an inch. That is how tall I am. My wife is 5'7", and my kids are actually quite tall as well for their age. Okay, hang on a sec. So there you go, John. Hope that answers your question. We got about 5 minutes to go, folks. And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that supports my Sunday Night Live show. We've been doing this now. I went back through all of the Sunday Night Lives, and I worked out that we've been doing this for 2 years. And we're well into the hundreds of shows now. Because I think we did the 100th show maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. So I think we're on. I'm not keeping a number because I'm not very good at keeping numbers, but I think this is show number 105. I think. Could be wrong on that, but yes, we've been running Sunday Night Live pretty much every Sunday for 2 years. And I just want to say a massive thank you to all you guys for supporting it over those 2 years and being here and asking questions. Michael says, can you play us out with something you're working on? Maybe. Possibly. I'll have a look. Because some of the stuff that I'm working on is kind of subject to copyright and all of that, and I don't want to get nasty copyright strikes. Hey, Lollipop Guild. How are you doing? A little late. Yes, we're just about to finish up the show, but I was just saying a massive thank you to you guys, actually, for you know, kind of being with me over this last couple of years of doing Sunday Night Live. Now, the cool thing is, this show is not going anywhere. Even once I start the VIP and the new website and the new services and everything else that's going to be involved in that, Sunday Night Live is not going away. I'm going to be carrying on doing that every Sunday. And there will be exclusive webinars and coaching calls and that kind of stuff for the VIP members, as well as Sunday Night Live. Sunday Night Live will carry on until, I don't know, YouTube stops or something like that, or I die or something ridiculous. Michael Johnson says, or something you've done that we have not heard. I could reach into my archive and maybe dig out one of my older songs that you may or may not have heard. Yeah, we could probably do something like that. Why not? And Lollipop Guild says, and a massive thank you to you, Mr. Lipsham. Well, that's very kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so I will see you guys on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified. And by the way, I don't know if Jonny is still in the house. Jonny, are you still here? Are you still watching? Please let me know in the chat if you're still watching. Mika says, can we hear you play bass? Seen it for months. It's unfortunately probably not a good idea because it is like 1 o'clock in the morning here. And to crank it up to enough volume for the mic to pick it up, it'll wake the neighbors and then I'll have the police round. So I probably couldn't, but I am thinking about doing another live stream show in addition to this one for my European friends who stay up at absurd o'clock like I do, so that you guys can have an earlier show in the evening for us here in kind of like the European time zone area. So I am thinking about that. I just need to settle on a time and settle on a day that's going to be good for everybody, or at least the broad majority of folks. Is Jonny still here? I don't think he is. I don't think he's here. But anyway, Songwriting Simplified on Wednesday is going to be a little bit different. And this is the reason why it's going to be a little bit different, because it's my birthday. Yes, folks, it will be my birthday on Wednesday. And so I'm sure Jonny and I will do a bit of a slightly different, slightly special, slightly party-style show. So if you are available, be over on Jonny's channel for that. The usual time, 6 p.m. Central Time, Wednesday. It's going to be cool. It's going to be my birthday. It's going to be a laugh. Definitely going to be a laugh. And then we'll be back here again for Sunday Night Live. If in between now and next Sunday you have a particular burning question that you would like me to address as kind of like a big, broader topic for next week's show, please do drop me an email to johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and I'll be very glad to start featuring more of your things in my Sunday Night Live show. Because, you know, this show is for you. It's not really just about me sitting here talking, as much as I like doing that. I would much prefer it if I was able to address a particular issue that you guys have, or a particular big question that you would like answered that, kind of you think, hey, this isn't just maybe something I'm struggling with, maybe other people have this as well, or maybe it's hey, I think this would be good to show everybody else. If you think of those kind of things, drop me an email and put in the subject Sunday Night Live show topic, something like that. And I will compile a list, and then week by week we'll just go through them. We'll do a different subject each week. So if you guys are up for that, please do drop me an email. That would be very, very cool. Craig says, so you're doing it drunk on Wednesday? Unlikely. Mika says, I'm in for a European show. Excellent. And Lollipop Girl says, European show, great. Excellent. So that's 2. So if no one else, it will be us 3 for a European show. I will think about that some more, and we will see. Maybe in January we'll start the new year with a Sunday Night Live and a European show as well. Okay, folks, thanks ever so much. And I am, whilst I'm just doing the wrap up here, I am going to go and find some music from one of my older records that you can listen to play out with. All right, so I will... yeah, let's not start it off just yet. Thanks ever so much, folks, and I will see you on Wednesday for my birthday. Good night.
Of a knight riding in shining armor, then he got jaded by nightmares of snake-eyed charmers. Inhaled the light, embracing the dark neon rain. In her mind's eye, she hears a hopeful refrain. Sundown Susie, a child of the night, an after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. The reavers no more surrounds her, the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror she now beholds his face. Her dream fulfilled of a knight riding into her life, giving her strength, expose the dark to his bright light. This grace a jailbreak, freedom from all that's ensnared. With open eyes, she hears her long for refrain. Here's to Sundown Susie, a child of the night, an after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. The reavers no more surrounds her, the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror she now beholds his face. Sundown Susie, a child of the night, an after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. The reavers no more surrounds her, the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror she now beholds his face. Here's to Sundown Susie, a child of the night. And after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. Reapers no more surrounds her, and the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror she now beholds his face.
Good night, everybody.